Wow. How much?
You are listening to the Outside the Boards podcast. I'm Danny O'Leary. For most of my professional career, I have worked in mainstream sports for some of the world's leading sports organizations and properties and blue chip brands, helping to create award-winning omni-channel marketing campaigns, result-driven sales strategies, and impactful brand building initiatives. But all that work doesn't compare to the fun, excitement, and challenges I've been fortunate to experience working for the king of all sports, polo. For nearly a decade, I've put my heart and ambition into helping advance the sport of polo. I've made lifelong friendships, met some incredible people, traveled to memorable polo destinations, and heard the craziest stories. My goal is to share these people, places, and stories with you and provide a unique behind-the-scenes perspective of the game that breaks all the common stereotypes, all while discussing key issues affecting the sport today and the constructive sharing of ideas, insights, solutions, and best case studies for the purpose of advancing polo globally. Every week, I will have honest conversations with polo industry leaders, enthusiasts, and awe-inspiring people who make this sport great and fun to be around. I hope through their knowledge and their unique perspectives, they will motivate and inspire you. Together, we will explore ways you can make small tweaks to boost your polo business, whether you are a club, event, team, or player, that will amount to big changes in revenue, participation, attendance, and exposure. Saddle up. Welcome to Outside the Boards with me, Danny O'Leary. Hi everyone, Danny O'Leary here, and welcome to Season 3 of the Outside the Boards podcast. On this episode of Outside the Boards, I'm really excited to introduce you to player, patron, and owner of Lutterel Polo Farms, Jenny Lutterel Bernardoni. Lutterel is a private polo facility and organization owned by Jenny and managed by her husband Francisco, located in Declo, Idaho. A polo power couple if there ever was one. They breed and train polo horses with the goal of attracting teams to have a customizable, fun, and competitive summer polo in a place they love and call home. Lutterel has 3 polo fields, 160 stalls, exercise track, and an on-site 25-room luxury lodge renovated from its original 2-story barn, originally used for working draft horses from the 1920s. Apart from the summer seasons, Jenny also competes in medium go and low go competitive polo in both USA and Argentina. Jenny is originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, and got her start in horses from her mom, Claudia Lutterel, who showed saddlebreds and Arabians while she was growing up. Jenny started showing saddle seat in her early teens, and while she loved it, having seen polo on TV and magazines, she really wanted to try it. She got her chance when she attended Colorado State University, a now polo powerhouse in intercollegiate polo. From that first hit of the ball, Jenny was instantly hooked and never looked back. After graduating with a bachelor's in equine science, Jenny moved to Denver and joined the Denver Polo Club. In 2004, she created the Lutterel Polo team and started traveling to play polo all year long. In 2014, she and her husband Francisco moved their polo operation to Jenny's family ranch in Declo, Idaho. Jenny is one of the polo's leading women, who has carved her own path in the way of breeding future polo ponies and creating a unique, exclusive polo experience for serious players in one of America's most picturesque settings. I can't wait to visit Lutterel in the near future and take in the sights of this beautiful ranch and polo farm. So let's get started, everyone. Enjoy. Jenny Lutterel, how are you? Happy Thanksgiving, belated.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. I'm great.
Excellent. And are you in Idaho right now or no?
I am. I'm in Idaho looking at the snow outside, wishing for warmer climates right now.
You got snow. Oh my
We have
gosh.
snow, yeah.
I'm surprised. I'm in Chicago. We have not gotten any yet. I'm surprised.
Really? That's surprising.
It's like in the 40s right now. It's an abnormal warm fall, but
I'll
we're
trade
milking
you.
it out here.
We're about 20. Last night, I think it got down to 7. So We're having a real chilly fall, winter.
When does the snow set in Idaho?
Usually we don't get snow until January, February that sets in. But this year, right after Thanksgiving, we had our first snowstorm.
How much came down?
About 2 inches. Not, it's not a lot.
That can melt in a day.
For sure. Once it warms up, it'll be gone. And then we will be wishing for more.
Excellent. Well, again, Jenny, thank you for joining me. And I am eager to learn about your polo background and the success that your new polo farm has had in Idaho. There's been a lot of talk about it. I've read some of the articles about it.
I want to design my home after it if I could, although I'm too close to my neighbors, so I don't own a lot of land. We're pretty much in city limits out here. So I'm eager to learn because I want to understand kind of, what goes into developing a successful polo club, breeding program such as yours, and what you envision and the kind of polo experience you want to provide people out there, because it is clearly a destination in the making.
Definitely.
But let's go further back. Let's pull back the curtain. We all want to know, who is Jenny? What is your affiliation with polo in general, especially for those who are in the sport, new to the sport, and don't know enough about it, and those who are keen in learning more about it? So who is Jenny Lutterel?
Well, I grew up in Salt Lake City. I grew up showing saddlebreds and Arabians. I rode saddle seat, so absolutely nothing to do with polo. But I saw polo in magazines and on TV and always, wanted to give it a try.
How old were you?
Probably early teens, started seeing it in magazines. And I didn't know anything about polo other than just seeing the pictures. And of course, Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman stuff. And just always was fascinated with the sport. I didn't even know if women played at that point. A few years later, when it came time to choose a college, Colorado State University on their website actually has a polo team. And I thought, okay, it's an agriculture school. I want to go into equine science and I want to try polo. So I went to CSU and that was the beginning. I showed up and that first day they put a mallet in your hand and let you hit the ball. And there's something about that first strike of the ball that just went straight to the core.
But you went to CSU knowing that you wanted to do equine science.
I did know that I wanted to do equine science for sure.
Okay.
Growing up, my mom ran a vet hospital. So I grew up on the floors of a vet hospital. So I was always in the surgery rooms and the treatment rooms, helping out. When I was a kid, I had to clean cages and stalls. That was my job in the clinic. So I just grew up fascinated, thought briefly about going to vet school. But after a few years in college, I just didn't want any more studying.
So your mom was mostly like a horse veterinarian, hence the relationship with horses. Okay.
Yep.
What is equine science? What does that involve?
Study of horses, of everything, feeding, breeding, training, everything, anything to do with horses. I had a lot of classes. I had a horseback riding class. My mom was like, I'm sending you to college to take a horseback riding class. What are you doing? It's like, well, I needed it for a PE credit. So it was a lot of fun, but definitely got me prepared for where I am now.
Yeah, well, and not to mention if your mom ever wanted to expand her business outside of veterinarian, you got a whole entire slew of other services, that's for sure. Unless you already did that. Am I jumping ahead?
No. My mom sold the clinic probably after I graduated college. So she got tired of working. So the vet clinic's no longer in the family.
And at that time, did you guys own your own horses at all?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we had saddlebreds and Arabs. My mom was breeding and training and raising Arabs and saddlebreds. And so that obviously that's where I got the bug to do that. We always had babies around the house when I was growing up. So I learned a lot about the babies and taking care of them from a young age. So
what attracted you to polo other than other equine sports? I mean, did CSU have other equine sports beyond polo?
Yeah, they had the rodeo team. They had a jumping team. We could have done that. But polo, for me, the attraction was the team sport and to be able to have friends and teammates doing the same thing. When I was showing horses, it's just you and your horse. And I kind of miss the camaraderie of having a team. So that's really what attracted me to the sport.
Did you play any other team sports growing up?
No, I was in the dance company, but that was it.
And surprisingly, I don't know, this is probably just common stereotype, but given your location and everything, I'm surprised you didn't just grow up to be a barrel racer or a cowgirl, essentially.
Yeah, could have easily gone that way, but there was just something about polo from a young age that just pulled me in a different direction.
Well, CSU undoubtedly has a phenomenal collegiate polo program. So many people have come out of it, that's for sure. Who are some of your teammates then?
I was there with Jimmy Seward, Nick Safuni, Erica Gandamkar, Lauren Bill. So there's a lot of polo families that was, big at that time that I was in CSU, and I had the privilege to learn from them all. When I went to CSU, there wasn't a coach. The varsity students basically taught the beginners and the JV. So I really was fortunate in all of the people that were there at that time to have a good foundation of the game.
Where were your horses coming from at that time, since you had no coach?
The alumni, a lot of alumni donations. Some of the students' families donated horses at that time. There was like 25 horses when I was there.
Oh, wow.
So, and I donated a few over the years. They still reach out every year. You have anything that you can't play outdoors anymore? When you're at a college, you get retired, semi-injured horses. So again, that was a good experience and learning situation on how to take care of those horses so that they could play polo, ice, poultice. We had to do it all. We didn't have a coach. We didn't have anybody telling us what to do. So we relied on the experience of the students that knew about polo and knew about horses to really learn how to take care of these animals.
Now, were your teammates involved in equine science at all, or no?
Most of them were. There were a few outliers, but most of them were in the equine science program.
So I take it that being that you didn't have a coach, you guys are responsible for the care, the training, and so on and so forth. The cross connection between equine science and the sport of polo really deepened your education, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. We had a few vet students, so that helped a lot in the vet care. Being with the university helped us out with, any kind of major vet issues that we had. So we were very fortunate.
Now, how'd you do at CSU in polo-wise?
I never made the varsity. I was there at a time when there was a lot of polo dynasty families, students that were there. So I never made varsity, but I had a lot of fun playing in junior varsity.
So you graduated. When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2001. And after that, I decided I didn't want to move back to Salt Lake. So I moved to Denver and kind of got out of polo for about a year and a half. Wasn't sure kind of my next step. Got a job, started working retail, managing a tack shop. Surprise, surprise.
I thought you were going to say like Abercrombie and Fitch, just to throw everyone off.
No, we stayed in the horse business. And then through a friend of a friend, reconnected with Erica Gandamkar and went back to playing polo at Denver Polo Club. We started arena polo, and then Erica taught me how to play outdoor polo. Mm-hmm. And once she taught me to play outdoor polo, I never wanted to see the arena again.
Why? I mean, come on.
I don't know.
When I worked for the United States Polo Association, I fell in love with intercollegiate polo because one, so many prominent schools had polo programs that you would never know.
Yeah.
And we organized a map, and you can put all like the major logos of every school, and it's pretty impressive at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And I loved watching it because it was so down and dirty. It was the cross between the common polo stereotypes and like rodeo.
Oh, definitely. That's true.
And as a guy who's growing up who played football and everything, it's just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is brutal. I'm just waiting for someone to fly off their horse and hit the concrete wall.
Yeah. And CSU had a big concrete wall.
Yeah. And I was wondering, like, why are these walls concrete? All right. So you then pretty much grew up around Erica then.
Yeah, I did.
She's got a rich history with her family in the Denver Polo Club.
Yes.
So yeah, she was a fantastic interview. She was one of my favorite interviews. I think it was last season that I had her, and she's wonderful to talk to. I think we almost had to do a second episode just because we constantly were talking. Well, that's exciting. So you scrapped indoor, outdoor was your thing.
Yep.
So at that time, what handicap were you at?
At that time, I was a -1.
Mm-hmm.
I bought some property just down the street from Erica, about 500 acres. And the plan was to create Lutterel polo farms there in Denver, but the county wouldn't let me build a polo field. It was crazy expensive. I had a nice flat piece that was 100-year floodplain. Mm-hmm. And I was like, come on, let me put some grass and a polo field there. And they said, okay, you can do it, but you need to do all this engineering to move the water. I'm going, water for 100-year floodplain. Are you crazy?
So you planned on building the field on in a pre-existing designated floodplain.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they would probably force you to, all right, you're building some type of infrastructure here. You had to dredge and create a place for the water to go to. I feel like that's kind of a common thing if someone's building a polo field. Like that's the biggest hurdle that you have to get around. So it didn't happen.
No, financially, it wasn't feasible enough for us. So we just continued to use Erica's fields. Bob Janarvis had his property at that time over at Columbine. They had 2 fields. Boulder at that time had a field. So there were quite a few fields around. So we didn't feel like we needed one.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was just traveling around the Denver area playing polo. So we just kind of decided, well, let's focus on the breeding and scrap the polo field being private for that time.
Okay. That 500 acres, did you build anything or were you just breeding at that point? And was it just polo horses?
Just polo horses. We had a couple small houses for the employees and a barn for the horses that were playing. So we could have a nice barn, and we had a little track built. So we were able to leg horses up, and then the rest was pasture.
Mm-hmm.
Grabbed a couple brood mares. We started with a couple off the track thoroughbreds just to see kind of what we would get. I had a stallion at that time, so we used him. He was a really nice stallion. He was nice enough to live in the same pasture with the brood mares. Mm-hmm. So he just did his business, and we had babies, and we'd have 4 or 5 a year just to kind of get started and see what we could do. At that point, it was just kind of a fun thing, just to have babies and do something. We didn't really get serious until we moved to Idaho.
Mm-hmm. What goes into developing a breeding program from the ground up? I mean, one, obviously someone with your background and experience and education, no doubt about it. But I mean, what are the first steps to doing that? I mean, is it just a matter of like, oh, I found a good horse, they're going to have good genes and so on and so forth? And
that's definitely how I started. Like I said, we had a couple off the track thoroughbreds. We never were super successful with those. I had a couple of the babies that played polo. They never played really high goal polo. They were better 4-goal, 6-goal polo horses. Mm-hmm. And then I had a mare that I was playing for a long time that she was incredible. And so once I kind of retired her, she was kind of the foundation that really started the polo horses. Mm-hmm. What we found here for us is if you have a mare that has played polo mixed with a stallion that has played polo, the offspring are much easier and much more likely to play polo themselves.
Okay.
I really found that to be true comparing the off-the-track thoroughbred brood mares and their offsprings to anything that I had retired and made a brood mare.
Were you breeding thoroughbreds at the same time, even though they weren't being converted into polo ponies at all? I
had one mare that I was breeding. I sold a couple of her babies to a friend of mine for jumping. They just got way too big for polo. Then I had 2 of her babies that played polo. They were big. One was a gelding, one was a mare. They were just too big, 54 mallet horses, big, huge bodies. They didn't move great. Mm-hmm. They weren't super handy, but they were good, steady eddies.
So you're now breeding, and then obviously you're converting those horses into polo ponies and doing the training yourself. Were you training them yourself? Did someone else?
No, at that point, I had a couple pros working for me full time, and they were doing training and the breaking. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get on them until they were already stick and balling.
When do you start training a horse to become a polo pony?
Generally start at 2, at least to put a saddle on them, give them a few rides just to see how they are. We don't ask a lot from them. They're still growing, they're still developing. But at 2, they're still small enough that, you don't have a huge fight if they don't want you on their back. Mm-hmm. But again, what we found getting into the actual polo bloodlines, the horses are so much easier to train. They already know the answers to the questions without you having to teach them. You just kind of show them what you want. Oh, I know how to do that. It's really incredible, especially seeing how hard it was from the thoroughbreds that never played polo to the horses that now have several lines of lineage coming from polo breeding.
That's an interesting thing you mentioned. They just pick up on the sport so easily. Is it a nature versus nurture thing? Are they just far more receptive to that type of training and that skill level versus other horses? Like, what can you attribute that to?
I think it's got to be a lot of nature. I mean, I think it's just so ingrained in their DNA, especially when you're looking at bloodlines that are 3, 4, 5 generations deep of all being polo horses. I really think it's their nature.
It's just embedded into their DNA, just like a kid's personality. It's just like, it's not nurture, it's just nature.
I think so. I really think so. I mean, you'll still have an outlier that doesn't like polo, doesn't like the sport. Of course, there's always something in the genetics that pops up that you can have. But for the most part, they really are incredibly much easier to train and make into polo horses.
Outside the Board Season 3 podcast is presented by the United States Polo Association. The United States Polo Association is organized and exists for the purpose of promoting the game of polo, coordinating the activities of its member clubs and registered player members, arranging and supervising polo tournaments, competitions, and games, and providing rules, handicaps, and tournament conditions for those events. Its overarching goals are improving the sport and promoting the safety and welfare of its human and equine participants. Founded in 1890, the USPA is the largest voluntary sports organization in North America for the sport of polo. The USPA is currently made up of more than 200 member clubs and over 5,000 registered player members. It annually awards and oversees roughly 50 national tournaments hosted by its member clubs. For more information, please visit uspolo.org.
Do you find the horses enjoy it? I ask this question because I always tell people, I'm like, I remember going to the US Open and I'm hanging out with the horses. I think it was like Valiente and Audi. I don't remember who was playing. And I swear to God, those horses got a little pep in their step when they knew that they were going out.
Absolutely. Yeah. They love the adrenaline. Like I like to say to people who know nothing about polo, you're not going to get 1,000-pound animal to do something it doesn't want to do. Mm-hmm. They love the sport. They thrive on the adrenaline. They're herd animals, so they like to be with their friends. They like to compete.
Versus a trail horse, which I feel like are a little bit stubborn and will go up to the nearest tree to get a belly rub and care less about you and knock you off.
Exactly, yeah. Like you're just a little tick on top. Get off.
Yeah. My daughter started riding. She's 6 years old. Here at the Oak Polo Academy, and it was kind of fun watching a 6-year-old hold a mallet that's twice the length of her.
Yeah,
I told him, like, there's nothing to be afraid about polo ponies. They're incredibly docile. They're very friendly. They're very curious, and they're always going up and sniffing. They're not stubborn whatsoever. And I think she likes horses now more than dogs.
You're in trouble.
By far. She freaks out when it comes to like a little dog that's the size of a Chihuahua. But when it comes to 1,000-pound horse, she doesn't mind getting up close.
Well, you're in trouble.
I'm probably in trouble. My wife already warned me. It's just like, please don't get into a major equestrian sport now. Not now. This is fascinating. So what made you go from Colorado then to Idaho?
The property in Idaho has been in my family since the 60s.
Okay.
And both my grandparents passed away. And my mom and I sat down and we were talking about it. And there's about 20,000 acres here in Idaho. And we were kind of doing the math on how small the pastures were getting with the amount of horses that were growing.
That's how large your land is down there?
Yes, 20,000 acres, yeah.
The polo fields, it's a fraction, tiny fraction.
Yeah, it's a very tiny fraction. The 3 little fields are nothing compared to the rest of the property.
Wow. I'm speaking to a regular John Dutton.
I don't know about that, but... But yeah, so it just made sense for us to move the operation up here. So really the brain behind everything was my mom. She's the one that had the idea, all the details in the architecture, the look, the layout, all came from her brain. We have a 100-year-old barn that was a hay barn, and they had the draft horses downstairs. And my uncles always wanted to tear it down because it was just kind of a big storage shed for us. And when we moved up here, my mom was like, I wonder if we shouldn't turn that into a lodge so the guests can come and stay and be here. And So she hired some architects and some engineers, and they came in and did all their scans and looked at her and said, you could do anything you want with this barn. It is sturdy.
Yeah, that's my first question. Like, usually barns, when I see them on the road, aren't very sturdy looking.
Wow, this thing, engineers were impressed. They were, you can do anything you want.
So was your success in Colorado influenced your mom to, because she herself wasn't a polo player, right? So
no, she grew
she has
to
no
love it.
polo background. Okay, she grew to love it.
She grew to love it. Just watching me. I got her to stick and ball a couple times. She didn't love doing it as much as she loves watching it. Mm-hmm. So she never really took to it, but she definitely enjoys watching us, cheering on. For her, it's more fun as a team sport as well, cheering on the team. She gets pretty wrapped up in it, especially when it's a team, when we're watching the Open or whatnot. She's always cheering for Lutterel, and she's yelling at the TV, yelling at the refs.
There we go. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
She gets in the umpire's face. That's a horrible call. Jesus.
Yeah. Like, it's a good
one
thing
of those
it's
parents
on TV.
like at a youth sporting event. Yeah.
Totally.
I think I read somewhere you started in 2015 on the property.
Yep.
Was that just the polo fields in general?
Actually, we started the polo fields, the horse barns, and the lodge at that time.
All simultaneously?
All simultaneously, yeah.
Wow. Was the land, the soil, all that kind of stuff conducive to what you would want for a polo field, or were there's a lot of starting from scratch?
No, it's actually very conducive. On this ranch, we already grow potatoes, sugar beets, wheat, corn, alfalfa, barley. So we're sitting on fairly fertile soil. Mm-hmm. And we actually took a quarter of one of the pivots that we used to grow, and we turned it into the polo fields. So it was very fertile. It was already flat. The only thing we had to do was pull back some of the soil and put sand.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, the drainage and all that stuff underneath the field.
But this time you didn't have any issues with drainage, did you?
No, not at all.
Idaho was much more easier to work with than Colorado.
Yeah, they were like, oh, it's your land. You do whatever you want.
How long did it take your polo fields to grow in?
We gave it 3 years, and then we started playing on it a little bit, just breaking it slowly.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the growing months in Idaho, is it much shorter than maybe the rest of the country? Like here, ours probably goes from, if you're lucky, April through October, at least this year.
Yeah, that's pretty standard here.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
So when you moved to Colorado to Idaho, how many horses did you guys have?
I think we had about 60 when we moved.
And what are you up to now?
We're about 200.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I swear the article that I read was like maybe a year ago, and it was like 160. So
yeah, we grew up a little more. Yeah, we had a few years of Jenny getting crazy with the breeding program. I think last year we had 17.
Well, that's attributed to your success. I mean, there clearly must be a demand, is there not, in terms of getting quality bred polo ponies?
Oh, definitely. And, for me, I really enjoy being able to say that I played the mother, I played the father, and now I'm playing the baby. That for me is like the ultimate goal. Like, there's just no better feeling than playing something you bred, you raised, you trained. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's been a lot of fun. Most of the horses we keep, so that we've been successful, that they're fitting into our program. The ultimate goal would to raise and train something that could go higher. I'd love to send a horse to the Open. That would be another goal that I would absolutely love to achieve.
Now, how did your relationship with La Delfina come about? Because it's like listening to you, it's just like, you're so successful on your own. What do you need them for?
Bloodlines. Being in Denver, I knew Bob. And so I met Robert Tito probably in 2006, because when I first started going out to California to play in Indio, Robert Tito was out there. So I've known Robert Tito Zeta for a long time. And we were sitting around in Valiente Barns one day, and he looked at me and he said, you just need to come to La Delfina in Argentina, and you need to play this tournament, and you're going to play with Adolfo, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I just kind of looked at him. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I'm not good enough to do that. He's like, Jenny, you are. Just get a plane ticket, get your butt down here, and let's do this. And so I took a leap of faith, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. 2019, went to La Delfina, played the Zafiro with Adolfo, and it was a crazy, incredible experience. And I got to know Adolfo at that time, and he's even crazier than I am about breeding and all of that, obviously, because he's
they clone down there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the things that they do down there are insane. But it's been a lot of fun getting to know those guys. Adolfo and I and Robertito and now Heiho Taranco, we've all just kind of struck up a good friendship. And I hired Heiho and a couple other La Delfina guys to come play in the summer. And they brought a couple stallions with them. And they were like, the stallions are here. You're welcome to use them. And so that's really how we kind of started. Just kind of playing around with a couple of the La Delfina Valiente stallions that were here for the summer. And that's really kind of propelled us in the breeding.
I had a really good conversation with Chris Green with the USPA. He was telling me about one of their missions is to really develop polo breeding programs here in the U.S., comparable to, let's say, when you go into Argentina. La Delfina and Alegre, I know, just had theirs where they're selling their horses and so on and so forth and really making a big deal. That doesn't really exist too much in the United States. But what you're doing seems to really align with what the USPA hopes to achieve with that. And it seems as though you already have a leg up on it. Who else in the U.S. has kind of a breeding program like you?
Well, I know that Bob with Valiente, and Rodolfo, they have several babies a year. I know Owen Reinhardt, I think he does a lot of the breeding for them. Other than that, off the top of my head, I don't know too many other people that are huge into breeding. I think a few in the Polo Roads, 3, 4, 5, babies a year. Now that we're in Idaho and we have more room, the number we're kind of going for is between 10 and 15 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that adds up. I mean, it's 10 to 15 a year.
Yes,
by the time
does.
you put a saddle on him, you've already gotten through 30.
Yes.
How long would you say it typically takes to train a pony before they're up for?
Usually they're playing around 5. Depending on how fast they mature, 5 to 6, you know what you have. At that point, you're sending them to play. If you get nicer horses, which is always the goal for us, probably 6 is when we're selling.
Okay. Wow. So that's 75 horses basically in the queue before, as you're turning them out. Okay. So that's roughly half of what you have there on the property then. Wow.
Yeah.
And is the turnaround good?
You always have a few every year that for whatever reason, they get hurt in the pasture or they have developmental problems. We've had a couple with crooked legs.
Oh, that's got to be hard.
It's really hard. It's heartbreaking. But now when you're looking at 15 babies standing in the pasture, it's a little less harder to take when you have a bunch more coming. But that was definitely a hard learning curve for me. I always want to make everything work. Yeah. But financially, it never makes sense to make everything work. Sometimes you have to cut your losses quickly.
The program that you develop, is it financially successful? I mean, no one gets in the sport of polo to make money.
Definitely, there is no profit at all. For me, it makes sense if I'm making horses that I can play.
Yeah.
Or that somebody in the organization can play. Because then if you don't have something you can play, you have to go out and spend more money to buy it. Yeah. So for me, I feel like we're breaking somewhat even in the polo world if we're making horses that stay in the organization. So we're not buying from outside. And that's really the goal.
Yeah. Now, when people come and visit you and play, are they leasing the horses from you to play? Are they bringing their own?
We're really pushing for people to bring their own. But definitely as the years go on and the horses get made and play, we're looking to have a rental string available.
Okay.
But that's definitely in the works.
Is your primarily clientele the patrons or lower goal individuals, not the pros themselves?
I would love to make horses that pros can take and play. But obviously, when you're looking at the financial a Patron is going to pay a lot more than a pro is going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, I'm happy.
Now, and obviously I know this probably also is dependent upon the individual themselves, but what is the perfect breed, size, weight polo pony? Is there an ideal scenario?
For me, I like the shorter, more stocky horses. I like to feel like I'm on something big, but I like to be close to the ground because it's way easier to see that ball.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through some of the pro strings, like the good ones, like I got to walk through the barns of La Delfina, and you see a lot of short, stocky horses. So I think that shows that that's kind of more the ideal.
Like a lower center of gravity type of thing? Is it, those horses had much more ability to stop and pivot quickly and not be too tall, like thoroughbreds might be?
That's definitely what I feel like. They're so agile. The moves that the smaller horses can make, I think a bigger, longer horse takes a little extra time to get that body turned around.
Mm-hmm.
With a shorter, more compact horse, that body turns a lot faster.
So you have about 200 horses there now. What is the overall vision for the property? So you had the fields, took about 3 years. So 15, 16, 17, were you pretty much operational in 18?
Yeah, we were. The ideal for us would be to bring other players in to enjoy the ranch and the polo fields and the polo here. Ideally, come and stay a week or two with your horses, with your pros. We'll have a good tournament. It's a ranch, so there's not a lot to do for those people who really enjoy shopping, big cities, restaurants. This is more of a low-key ranch atmosphere.
Someone who wants to get away from the world.
Exactly.
Is that what you usually find? Is that individuals who want to come there, who want to get out but enjoy the sport without the stress of corporate world and their jobs and what have you?
So far, yes, that's what I've really found. Is especially when COVID hit, we had several people that were working via internet and they could be anywhere. And they really enjoyed being here, no distractions. They were able to play polo in the morning and do all their office emails, Zoom meetings, whatever, in the afternoons in the lodge. So that's kind of what we want to continue to promote.
So you're not in the business of opening your property out for spectators to watch polo or focus on large tournaments, let's say, within that area sort of thing. It's more on the casual side of things.
That's exactly what we want to keep it as, is casual, fun, not a lot of craziness. We like it quiet.
What is your routine every day? I'm just curious, on a property like that where it's so casual, so relaxing, you probably don't even hear airplanes in the sky.
Only when they're spraying the fields. Because like I said, we grow a lot of crops around here. So we do have the crop dusters.
Do we see you harvesting potatoes?
Not personally, but you see it happen. I don't personally get out there and do it, but I have dug my own potatoes. Before the farmer goes out and harvests, we're always stealing his potatoes. I guess really they're our potatoes, but I always feel like they're his.
I think I read somewhere that you guys have a chef. There, I forget his name.
We bring in Augustine Malman a couple times a year to do some parties for us. He's amazing.
There's a lot of farm to table using stuff that's grown on the property?
No, it's kind of more Argentine, very heavy in the steak. So,
do you do any cattle ranching down there or no?
We have several pastures that we actually lease to a guy that runs his own cattle. When I was a kid growing up, my grandfather ran cattle on the property. But when the market fell out many, many years ago, he sold everything and got out.
How many cattle are on there? Is it a big operation or no?
Jared, I think, runs about 500 cows.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
It's still a lot.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
That's got to be a cool sight to see, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there other properties on the 20,000 acres that you have where other people are staying or the cowboys are and what have you?
The main part of the ranch where the polo field are is where everybody lives. So we're all kind of clumped together down here on the main part of the ranch. So, and we have several people that live here year round. We have ranch manager, field manager, and we have several guys that are in charge of the horses.
So that's got to be an incredible place to visit. I mean, it's just not polo. I mean, it's
No, it's a real working ranch.
That's fascinating. You get the best of a lot of worlds there.
Outside the Board Season 3 podcast is presented by the National Polo Center Wellington. The National Polo Center in Wellington, Florida is located in the heart of South Florida's legendary horse country. The permanent home for polo in America, NPC is owned and managed by the United States Polo Association to showcase the finest the sport has to offer. The association's premier event, the Gauntlet of Polo, takes place from February to April each winter season. Throughout the year, the facilities are also used to showcase USPA member clubs and prestigious national tournament competition. Watching polo from the stadium, private boxes, fieldside tailgates, or special hospitality tents, all overlooking the US Polo ASSN Field 1 is an unparalleled experience. NPC invites you to enjoy the best polo in the country, taking place at one of the most beautiful venues in the world, the National Polo Center Wellington. For more information, visit nationalpolocenter.com.
You bring up kind of a perception of polo that I have that I constantly tell people, because often people are like, oh, you know, polo, Pretty Woman, the royal families, and what have you. And I always tell them, like, you guys need to pull back the curtain on this, because you're going to realize the people who really play it, the pros and things like that, it's not all that pomp and circ.
No.
It's very blue collar, in my opinion, to some degree. And people who are watching like Yellowstone and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, no offense, but a lot of people who are in the polo world can relate to that to some degree.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, this is really blue collar. The pomp and circumstance you work for is maybe 5% of the life of polo.
I'm glad you put a percentage on it. So listen to this, everyone.
95% of what we do is to make that one game that there is all that pomp and circumstance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much blood, sweat, and tears to get to that one game. Because at the end of the day, it's one game. You've got to make the horses. You've got to train the horses. You've got to play the qualifying games. There's so much more that goes into it to make that one single game where all that pomp and circumstance is.
And there might be one guy on the team that's driving around in a Bentley and a Ferrari. Everyone else is driving GMC 2500 vehicles. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, I hope for everyone who's listening, it's just like, look, there's a world that people are not have access to in our sport. And it's one of the reasons why I come from mainstream sports, and I fell in love with it just for the reasons that we just talked about. It's beautiful. My favorite time is after matches and what have you, is going back with the players and cracking open a Yellow Jacket Coors Light and having a asado and blue jeans and relaxed. And that's what the world I fell in love with. You're not going to see a champagne glass in my hand. Never.
No, never. Especially not in a barn.
There's so much more to the sport that, you know, hopefully people will take the time and to understand and get to know the grooms, the players, and really look at polo for what it is. I think it's going to open up a lot of doors for the game.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, no doubt about it, it's expensive to get into. There's no arguing that whatsoever.
But any horse business, anything to do with horses is expensive to get into. They have to eat, they have to be vetted, they have to be taken care of. So it doesn't matter what sport you get into. If it's with horses, it's expensive.
But there's something about polo versus other equestrian sports. I feel like that's a little bit more cowboyish in a way. And I haven't been involved in other equestrian sports to really have a firm grasp on that opinion. So
no, I agree. Like, I grew up showing saddlebreds and Arabs, and for me, polo is more of a family experience. You know, everybody's in the barn having fun. There's always kids running around. It's more family oriented for me.
Now, are you actively playing while you run the ranch or no?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is pretty much your polo isolated to what you're doing there? Are you going other places and what have you during that time?
During the summer, I am here, strictly here. Sometimes we'll go for a weekend. The last 2 years, we've gone to Denver for a weekend to help Bob out. He does the Denver 2030. So we show up and...
What's the Denver 2030?
It's a big charity event that they do 3 days of polo, and it's a huge charity event in Denver.
Okay.
So they raise a lot of money for children's charities. But it's a really fun event. It's 3 days, so they always need players for those 3 days.
Are you playing high gold down there, or is it a mix?
The last 2 years has been 12 to 16 goals, I think. So pretty good level. Here we aim for 16. That's the level we're aiming for. Usually Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, we definitely play 16 goals. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays we'll use for green horses. Some of the kids play. So it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 goals. Practice games.
How many teams do you have in there between June, July, and August?
If it's just us, we have 2. But if we bring in guests, we try to put together 4 because it always makes for a funner tournament if you have 4 teams.
And you have pros on staff?
Yeah, we do.
Who are your pros?
Last year we had Santi Van Vernick, we had Santi Sterling, Pedrinho Zacarias, Gabby Seculio, my husband Francisco, and Heijo Chiranco, and Tommy Alberti.
My gosh, what a fun job, Jenny, you have. I think they got to just do a documentary on now. Hopefully. Iron Horse Creative or someone's got to do one.
Somebody needs to, because there's so much that goes behind the scenes of all polo everywhere. They really should do something behind the scenes.
Yeah. I don't know if you Formula One person and watch Drive to Survive on Netflix.
Yes, definitely.
It's like people watch that. It's just like, how could Formula One agree to do that? Because like, yeah, there's some awful stuff that goes on. It's just like, well, you slow down when you see a car accident. Bad publicity is good publicity at the end of the day. But to your point, there is a profound fascination with this game, going back to pulling the curtain just from the breeding, what goes into putting a team together, what the strategy is involved, and so on and so forth. The number of horses that you're playing with, given at a certain level. I mean, it's an incredible operation just in itself.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when I talk to people like, oh, how many horses are used? Oh, well, it depends. And I said, we go up to 26. This is how many horses. Like, really? They bring in that many? I'm like, yeah, it's no joke.
No, especially if you want to win.
Yeah. And I tell them like, well, probably the most people, La Dauphine, all that, they have 300 plus horses. Like, come on. It's no joke. This is an incredible industry. It is.
Yeah. And it's all about the horse flesh,
Yeah.
The better the horses, the better you're going to play.
Is there anything that you see as part of the sport that it can do better or is not doing good enough at from a 30,000 foot? Like, this is just a very broad question.
I think if we could promote it differently, I don't know what the answer is on how to do that. But I think, like you said, we need to pull the curtain back and show people what the sport really is like. Because I think what you see is, like you said, the big, huge pomp and circumstance games. But how did those players get there? There's so much that went on behind the scenes for those players to show up and be able to play in that one game, that I think that's what would bring more people into the world of polo, is to understand that it's a family sport, it's a friend sport, it's an inclusive sport. I think polo people tend to be inclusive. That's
a great word to say, inclusive. I mean, I find polo to be incredibly accessible. It's not exclusive to a member or a club. Frankly, at Oakbrook, we try not to use club in our name just because it signifies membership or exclusive to a group or a paying membership or something like that. That's not really true.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that about others where there is legitimate clubs and what have you, but a club kind of distinguishes something of affluence maybe or what have you. It's just like if I were to advise people, it's just like, don't use it. Just don't use it. Just say X, Y, and Z polo, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
Or use ranch. Ranch really, dials it down a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Hopefully still doing what I'm doing. That's the goal. My kind of next adventure is I'm going to play the polo tour in Argentina this spring.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm very nervous and excited about that.
What level is that?
16.
16. Okay.
There's 3 tournaments at 16 and 1 at 20. So
Are you bringing your own horses down for that, or?
I bought a string of horses that will stay in Argentina. So,
Okay.
Of course, all thanks to La Delfina. But
are you stabling at their barns and what have you, or where's your place of residence going to be down there?
We're actually getting ready to buy a small little piece of property kind of right inside La Delfina to put a barn, and we're talking about putting a house right on the same property. So I always like to live with my horses.
Yeah.
So, that's how we do it here. And that's kind of what I find comfortable and I love. So we're kind of thinking about doing that there.
I think my wife was with me. We took a tour of Bob Janarvis's place. And just like there's windows that overlook the arena and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
like my wife is just like, I can't believe this. It doesn't even smell like anything. It's just
Yeah.
These horses live better than what my children's bedrooms probably look like.
I definitely think that's a common thing. Most of us take way better care of our horses than we do ourselves.
That's for sure. Well, Jenny, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. This conversation was incredibly educational. Frankly, I think we just covered the surface of what goes into breeding polo ponies, but it's a fascinating world. And there's very few people, especially in the US, that really do it to the scale that you're doing it. That's no doubt about it. And I wish you so much success, and I can't wait to visit down there.
Happy to have you anytime.
So again, your seasons are June, July, and August, right?
Yes.
I'm pronouncing it right. Lutterel.
Yep.
Polo Farm or Polo Ranch, I forget.
Either one. It's kind of interchangeable at this point.
Slightly a dude ranch, I want to say.
Slightly, yes. Yep.
Slightly. That would be another source of revenue for you, is that if you want the Dutton experience, you can come down and there's another half to it.
Yeah, I don't know if there'd be a lot of murder and whatnot, but...
Oh, yeah. We can set up storylines and hire actors to fulfill that.
There we go. There we go. Definitely.
I mean, just fascinating. I mean, it really is, Jenny, and I wish you the most success. And what you guys are doing down there, I think, is great. And look forward to visiting. If you ever want to come up to Chicago, you're more than welcome to.
Perfect.
You're not going to see that much open land, that's for sure. But yeah, thank you for joining.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
In 2012, the founders of Outside the Boards witnessed their first polo match and were stunned by the sport's beauty and brutality. Few sports, if any, have these combined qualities. The sport's grace, intensity, and warlike imagery create a shock and awe viewing experience like none other. Combine this with the sport's party-like atmosphere and lifestyle, and you have a recipe for success. Today, the sport has yet to witness its full potential. The industry is fragmented, riddled with politics and inexperience. Outside the Boards was purposely designed to change all that and bring clarity to the sport by introducing best practices, insights, trends, and consulting services to industry stakeholders and interested brands so that they can reach their marketing potential and better navigate the sport. Whether you're a club seeking custom sponsorship and marketing solutions or simply looking for strategic advice, we encourage you to contact us today or subscribe to gain access to industry insights. Visit us at www.outsidetheboards.com or to learn more or email us at info@outsidetheboards.com. Now we have reached the part of the show where we address outside the boards issues affecting the sport of polo with the sharing of insights, ideas, and best practices towards solving everyday marketing, branding, and sponsorship problems, avoiding bad habits, or helping to navigate through new trends and how to best leverage those opportunities. Hi everyone. On this episode's Insights, I want to talk a little bit about a program that I've started to use quite a bit. I was introduced to Canva. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Canva is a design, photo, and video application. A few years ago, I came across it. It was highly recommended for me to use your mobile devices, so your phone or tablet. But not that long ago, they have created a desktop application. And by doing so, I've never used it more in my life. So what is it exactly? So Canva is essentially a graphic design tool. So if you're looking to enhance your brand or stay consistent with your existing brand by adopting color schemes, logos, and so on and so forth, and integrating it into your social media, your presentations for work, video, photos, and so on and so forth, then you have the ability to do that. And it's really, really intuitive. I mean, it wasn't so much when I use it on my mobile phone. It actually kind of was a bit of a headache. It took me more time. But since they created the desktop version, it's become way easier, and I use it far more often. It's much more intuitive. When I sit down, I have the time and commitment on my screen to really put consistent brand templates together. I use it a lot for social media. I'm starting to use it in other areas as well. So it's highly recommended. So like I said, I don't normally tout certain things, but Canva, I definitely need to bring everyone's attention, because if you're not a graphic designer by any means whatsoever, but you do want to pump some type of life into how you advertise, promote, market yourself, whether it be print, social media, on your website, this is a really, really, really good way to do it. It's relatively inexpensive. I think there's some free access that you can do, but it is very, very limited. But for a monthly fee or annual fee, it's really, really worth the spend. I mean, in addition to using it for my club, I also use it for my company as well. So it's very diverse in terms of how I use it. And it's really, really endless. And there's also fantastic existing templates. So for work, I've used it for business plans, for pitch decks, training manuals, presentations for sponsorship, charts and infographics. It's really fun to use. In terms of social media, you can use it for your stories, highlights, create Facebook posts and Instagram posts, design Twitter banners, YouTube thumbnails, make cards, invitations, photo collages, you name it. You can edit videos and photos with Canva, adjusting brightness, contrast, all that kind of stuff. It has pretty much everything. I could go on and list all the features that it has, but it's really, really quite extensive. So again, I wanted to take the time to, as this insights, to really hype up Canva. In no way they're sponsoring this whatsoever, this podcast or this episode. I'm just a huge advocate, because I will tell you, it has cut time and cut costs significantly by me making it a little bit of effort and spending a little bit of time to do my own thing. And for your smaller clubs that are out there that really want a little bit of a boost in terms of what you're doing to come across as more professional and more legit, then this is a program for you. So if you have a Mac or PC, I'm pretty sure you can download Canva as well. You can get it on your mobile phone, but I highly encourage the desktop version. So that's it, everyone. I appreciate it. Enjoy and have a great day. Bye. That was a great episode. What is the one thing you learned from today's conversation? If this episode had an impact on you in some way, then I encourage you to visit and subscribe to our website at outsidetheboards.com for more episodes and interviews with incredible guests. Thanks for stopping by, my friends, and hope to see you on the polo field.